So, what if I told you that the most important piece of real estate for a century-old legacy business is no longer, that perfectly manicured lawn on Main Street?
Right, it's definitely not.
Yeah, it's actually a 3-inch digital map on a smartphone, probably glowing in the dark at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Which is a pretty stark contrast to what we usually picture.
Exactly. I mean, when you picture a traditional funeral home, there's a very specific, almost cinematic image that comes to mind.
Oh, totally. The heavy doors.
Yes, you got those big, heavy oak doors, solid brass handles, that imposing, stately architecture that just silently projects this aura of absolute permanence.
Right. And it's a design language meant to communicate stability.
Yeah.
The building itself is basically telling you, we have been here for generations, and we will be here to catch you when you fall.
Which is highly comforting, but
But it's also incredibly physical.
right.
Historically, you literally had to find the strength to pull open that heavy oak door, walk into a quiet parlor, and verbally ask a stranger for help on what might be the worst day of your life.
But here is the reality check for 2026. That heavy oak door is practically obsolete.
It really is.
The front door to the world's most traditional, physically rooted profession has moved entirely online. And that's what today's deep dive is all about.
Yeah, the rapidly evolving digital landscape of the death care industry.
Specifically, we are looking at why funeral homes and funeral directors urgently need to master local SEO.
Because it represents a massive paradigm shift. I mean, we are watching an industry that was entirely built on firm handshakes and like generational loyalty completely collide with artificial intelligence.
And a very digital-first consumer base.
Exactly.
So to really wrap our heads around this, we're pulling from a fascinating stack of sources today.
Some really great data in here.
Yeah, we've got the 2025 Consumer Awareness and Preferences Study from the NFDA. That's the National Funeral Directors Association, for those wondering.
Right.
We are also looking at global market analysis from Data Insights Market. Plus, we have these specialized insider strategy guides from marketing firms deeply embedded in this space, like IFM and Ring Marketing.
Which give us the real tactical on-the-ground view.
Totally. And our mission today is to understand how this incredibly sensitive profession is adapting to an AI-driven world and, well, what that teaches you about modern local marketing.
Because the lessons here apply universally.
Right. Because if you are listening to this right now, whether you are a digital marketer, maybe you run a local plumbing or dental business, or you're just insanely curious about how ancient industries adapt to the future, this deep dive reveals how any sector rooted in physical community presence can survive in the digital age.
And the stakes for figuring this out are just staggering. I mean, the global at-need death care market is projected to hit between $40 billion and $60 billion.
Wow.
Yeah, so the financial penalty for ignoring this digital shift is, frankly, existential.
Okay, let's unpack this. Historically, families chose a funeral home based on simple geography or just because, that's just where Granddad went in 1995.
The loyalty was incredibly sticky.
Right. You'd walk down Main Street, or at most, you'd open a massive yellow phone book. So if the old way was that tactile, how drastic is the shift? Are people really shopping for a funeral home the way they look up a local coffee shop?
What's fascinating here is just how completely consumer behavior has inverted. It is not a subtle transition at all.
Really?
According to a U.S. funeral consumer survey, 62% of respondents say their very first step in planning a funeral is searching online.
62%. First step.
First step. They aren't picking up the phone to call the place down the street, and they certainly aren't walking through those oak doors. They are immediately pulling out their smartphones. And it goes further. 76% place in-person appointments as their last or next to last choice for initial at-need planning.
Wow. But, that actually makes sense when you think about the psychology of the moment.
How so?
Well, if I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone in the acute early stages of grief, the cognitive load is just crushing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't want to sit in a plush, quiet office across a mahogany desk and be handed a glossy brochure. I'd want the psychological buffer of a screen.
Yes.
I'd want to gather information privately at my own pace, like in my living room at midnight.
You've hit on the exact psychological driver there.
Yeah.
A screen offers a safe distance.
Yeah.
And the industry data absolutely backs up this desire for digital autonomy to sort of soften the initial blow.
Right.
Looking at the NFDA 2025 study, Nearly 30% of families now complete all their funeral arrangements online.
Wait, all of them?
All of them.
From picking the service to handling the logistics entirely through a portal?
Entirely online. Almost a third of families.
That is wild.
And to show you just how far the digital adoption has gone, that same study revealed that 40% of consumers used a funeral home they originally found on Facebook.
Facebook?
Yeah, and that number was only 21% back in 2023. It nearly doubled in a 2-year span.
So social signals and digital presence aren't just modern window dressing anymore. They're literally the primary engine of discovery now.
Exactly.
But does this mean people actually want a completely automated, robot-run funeral? Because that sounds incredibly bleak.
No, not at all. And that's a really crucial distinction we need to make. The data shows that 44.4% of people would feel not confident planning a funeral without the guidance of a director.
Okay, so they still want the human element.
Desperately. The technology isn't replacing the human funeral director. It is simply reducing the logistical friction. The tedious paperwork, the uncomfortable price shopping, so that when the human interaction finally happens, it matters significantly more.
That makes a lot of sense.
The human support is still the core product, but the digital front door is what gets them into the building.
Which brings up a really practical question. If everyone is starting on a screen, how are they actually searching? Because death care is an urgent, highly localized need.
Highly localized.
Right. If I'm a funeral home in Chicago, I don't care if I rank #1 in a search made by someone in Seattle.
Exactly. And that localized urgency changes the entire strategy. Broad, national SEO is completely useless here.
So what works?
When families search terms like funeral director near me or cremation services Manchester, whether they are in the US or the UK, Google's algorithm steps in to play matchmaker.
Okay.
It uses 3 primary factors to decide who shows up first: relevance, distance, and prominence.
Look, I'm going to stop you right there because if I'm in a panic at 2 a.m., I am not deeply researching prominence.
Right.
I am typing funeral home, looking at a map, and tapping the closest red pin to my house. You can't tell me proximity isn't the absolute king here. If I'm standing a block away from a funeral home, shouldn't it be the first result?
It's completely logical to assume that, and honestly, it's a trap a lot of local business owners fall into.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Proximity is a factor, sure, but Google's algorithm has evolved far beyond just using a digital tape measure. Google heavily prioritizes user intent, and that third factor I mentioned, prominence.
Okay, prominence.
In the SEO world, we evaluate this using a framework called EEAT: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness.
EEAT, EAT. Okay, but how does an algorithm measure authoritativeness for a funeral parlor, though?
By looking at their digital footprint, it looks at how many local community sites link back to the funeral home. It looks at the volume and quality of reviews.
Oh, I see.
It looks for comprehensive answers to common questions on their website. So a funeral home that is 3 miles away but has vastly superior local SEO, a wealth of positive reviews, and highly relevant content will routinely outrank a competitor who is physically right around the corner but has a dormant, neglected online presence.
Wow.
Because Google's primary directive is to recommend the most reliable, trusted answer, not just the closest one.
That makes a lot of sense when you frame it that way. The ultimate goal here, according to the sources, is getting into what's called the local 3-pack, or the map pack.
Yes, the holy grail of local SEO.
Right. For those listening, that's those top 3 business listings that show up right under the map before you even get to the regular website links.
And that map pack is everything. It captures 44% of all local search clicks.
Just those 3 spots.
Just those 3. And on mobile devices, which remember is how most of these crisis-driven middle-of-the-night searches are happening, that number shoots up to 70%.
70%.
Yeah. If you aren't in those top 3 spots, you are practically invisible to the vast majority of your local market.
And what really surprised me in the strategy guides is that the foundation of getting into that map pack isn't actually your beautiful website.
Nope.
It's your Google business profile,
Yeah.
your GBP. It's this free profile hosted by Google. And the guides stress that you have to maintain meticulous NAP consistency.
NAP consistency. Name, address, phone number. It cannot be overstated how critical that is. To an algorithm, consistency equals reliability.
Right.
So if your phone number on your Google business profile uses a toll-free area code, but your website lists a local area code, and your Yelp profile has an old number from 5 years ago,
The algorithm just panics.
it gets confused. It senses instability. And in an industry where trust and reliability are literally the entire product,
Yeah.
algorithmic confusion is fatal to your search ranking.
And there is a fascinating wrinkle here regarding geography that completely changes the local part of local SEO.
Oh, the hybrid funerals.
Yes, the NFDA study highlighted the rise of the hybrid funeral. Because modern families are incredibly dispersed now, 64% of people want live streaming options for distant relatives.
It's a huge shift.
So the person conducting that highly localized search, say typing funeral home in Austin, Texas, might actually be a daughter sitting in an apartment in London,
Right.
frantically trying to coordinate a service for her parent who lived in Texas.
Which perfectly illustrates why your digital front door has to be flawless. That daughter in London cannot physically drive by your location to see how well kept your landscaping is or how heavy your oak doors are.
She has no idea.
None. Your Google business profile, your high-resolution photos, your 360-degree virtual tours, that is your curb appeal now. It's the only physical proof she has.
Okay, so let's play this out. The daughter in London is staring at 3 identical listings in the Austin map pack. She has no physical cues. How does she choose?
She looks for social proof.
Right. This brings us to the currency of the modern internet digital social proof, reviews. But here's where it gets really interesting.
It's a tricky subject.
It is. We are so used to leaving a casual 5-star review for a great pizza place or a fast mechanic, but asking a grieving family to leave a Google review, that feels entirely different.
It does.
It feels taboo, almost transactional in a space that is supposed to be sacred.
It feels deeply uncomfortable, and many traditional funeral directors balk at the idea entirely. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, reviews are non-negotiable in 2026.
You just have to have them.
You have to.
Hmm.
The data shows that 72% of people only take the next step after reading positive reviews, and 64% explicitly check Google reviews before interacting with any business.
Wow.
For a modern consumer, a lack of reviews isn't a sign of quiet dignity. It's a massive, glaring red flag. They assume you have something to hide.
So how on earth does a business navigate that? How do you ask a family for a review without sounding like an absolute monster?
It requires a highly ethical, carefully timed psychological framework. The specialized strategy guides from both IFM and Ring Marketing stress that timing is literally everything.
Okay.
You absolutely never ask for a review the day after the service. The industry consensus is to wait until the start of the third week.
Why the third week specifically? What's happening psychologically at that point?
Think about the mechanics of grief. The first week is a complete blur of shock, organizing catering, calling relatives, dealing with immediate logistics.
Right. Total survival mode.
Exactly. Then the second week is often the hardest part. The family is dealing with the immediate aftermath, trying to navigate life insurance, and facing the harsh reality of returning to work. They are underwater.
So you don't bother them then?
Right. But by the third week, the dust is just beginning to settle. They have finally caught their breath and have the mental space to reflect on the care they received.
But the funeral home shouldn't just ghost them for 2 weeks and then suddenly pop up asking for a favor, right?
Precisely. During those first 2 weeks, the funeral home should be providing immense unconditional value, sending grief support resources, checking in, offering advice on settling the estate.
Oh, I see.
You provide aftercare first. Then, in week 3, you gently shift the narrative. You don't say, please give us 5 stars to boost our SEO.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
You frame it around community. You say, your story and your experience could be the guiding light for another local family who is navigating this same darkness.
That reframes it beautifully. It transforms a marketing transaction into an act of community service.
Exactly.
And I found this detail in the sources completely fascinating. Some funeral homes are actually turning the gathering of these reviews into a friendly competition among their staff.
Oh yeah, the gamification.
Like, which director can get their specific name mentioned the most in Google reviews this month? It's this wild intersection of modern corporate gamification and traditional death care.
It sounds a bit crazy at first.
It does, but it totally works because it incentivizes the staff to provide such incredibly personalized, memorable care that the family specifically remembers the director's name 3 weeks later.
It really drives a culture of absolute excellence. And from an SEO perspective, having specific staff names and detailed experiences in the reviews drastically boosts that prominence factor we talked about earlier.
Oh, because the AI is reading those names.
Yes. However, there's another massive layer to this. Reviews are primarily for human eyes. To truly dominate local SEO in 2026, you also have to communicate flawlessly with the machines.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the actual website? Because I'm reading through these technical marketing guides and I'm hitting terms like JSON LD and schema markup.
The fun stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like total coding jargon to me. How does adding invisible code to the back end of a website actually translate to helping a grieving family?
Okay, think of a search engine as a tourist walking through your website who doesn't speak the local language.
Okay.
They are scanning your page and they see the text, cremation services, 2000. To a human, that makes perfect sense. But the search engine algorithm doesn't intrinsically know if 2000 is a phone number, a year, a zip code, or a price.
Ah, I get it.
So schema markup is like slapping a giant color-coded sticky note on that data that explicitly translates it into the algorithm's native language.
So it's a semantic contract. You are putting a digital name tag on every single piece of information so the AI doesn't have to guess.
Exactly. You use specialized tags recognized globally by search engines like funeral service, local business, and FAQ page.
Right.
And this invisible architecture has become absolutely critical because of GEO, generative engine optimization, and the massive explosion of voice search.
Wait, generative engine optimization, how is that different from regular SEO?
Regular SEO is about convincing Google to put your website link in a list so the user can click it and read it themselves.
Right.
GEO is optimizing for an AI that reads your website, synthesizes the information, and speaks one definitive answer back to the user. Families aren't just typing 2 words into a search bar anymore.
No, they're talking to their devices.
Exactly. They're talking to Siri, Alexa, or Google Assistant in their kitchens using highly specific conversational queries.
Right. So someone might ask their smart speaker, hey, what is the most affordable cremation service near me that specifically offers military honors?
Yes. And if your website just has a beautifully written paragraph of text about military honors, the AI might completely miss it because it's buried in prose.
Oh, what?
But if you have schema markup explicitly tagging your military honor service, the AI instantly pulls your business data and reads it aloud as the definitive single best answer.
That level of technical detail is wild, but the need for that hyper-personalization is growing incredibly fast.
It is.
Looking at the Data Insights Market Report, the U.S. cremation rate hit 61.8% in 2024. But beyond just cremation, 61.4% of consumers are now actively interested in green or natural burials.
People want options that align with their personal values.
Right, they want very specific value-driven things now, biodegradable caskets, water cremation, carbon offset services.
Exactly.
So schema is how you make sure your specific funeral home is the one that pops up when someone in your town searches for those exact eco-friendly values.
It connects nuanced consumer intent with local availability instantly. And, before we wrap up the technical side, we have to talk about the digital evolution of the obituary.
Oh,
Historically, an obituary was just a few column inches in a physical newspaper. Today, a digital obituary hosted on a funeral home's website is a high dwell time community hub.
dwell time. For those not living in marketing analytics all day, what exactly does dwell time indicate to an algorithm?
Dwell time is simply the amount of time a user spends actively looking at a web page before clicking away.
Okay.
When a funeral home hosts a beautifully designed digital memorial where friends and family can leave condolences, upload photo galleries, and watch a live stream of the service visitors stay on that page for a very long time.
Right, they're engaging with the content.
And search engines track that engagement. High dwell time sends a massive signal to Google that this website is highly valuable, relevant, and authoritative in that specific local community.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It drives immense organic traffic and lifts the SEO ranking of the entire funeral home website.
So by serving the family better, by giving them a gorgeous interactive space to mourn and remember, you are simultaneously organically boosting your own local marketing power. It's an incredible win-win scenario where empathy literally drives the algorithm.
It really is the perfect alignment of providing compassionate human care and executing high-level technical SEO.
Okay, let's pull all of this together because we've gone on quite a journey today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We've explored how the death care industry, one of the oldest and most physical professions on Earth, has had to completely rebuild its front door.
Out of necessity.
Right. Families are searching online, often in the vulnerable hours of the night, driven by urgency and geography. And to meet them there, funeral homes have to dominate the local map pack by mastering their Google business profile and ensuring perfect NAP consistency across the web.
We also unpacked the delicate currency of trust. How gathering reviews isn't taboo if it's done ethically, waiting for that critical third week when the cognitive load of grief begins to lift,
Which is such a vital detail.
and how those reviews act as the ultimate social proof for a distant relative trying to make a local decision. And finally, we looked under the hood at schema markup, the invisible sticky notes acting as a universal translator, preparing these historic businesses for a future dominated by AI and voice search.
And if you're listening to this and you run a local business, maybe an accounting firm, a landscaping company, or a bakery, the principles we've discussed today apply directly to you.
100%.
In an AI-driven world, providing hyper-local, transparent, and structured digital information is the ultimate way to build trust with a consumer long before they ever walk into your building. If these strategies are working for the death care industry, they will absolutely work for yours.
This does raise an important philosophical question, though, about the nature of technology and human connection. We often carry this inherent fear that digitizing a deeply personal process inherently makes it cold, robotic, and impersonal.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. Think about your own experiences. If AI, local SEO, and seamless digital tools eventually handle all the exhausting logistical planning, the uncomfortable price shopping, the scheduling, and the visibility for these funeral homes,
Right.
does that actually make the industry more human? By removing the friction of the transaction, digital marketing might be the exact thing that frees up funeral directors to do what they actually do best.
Which is the connection.
Yes, not sitting behind a mahogany desk filling out triplicate forms, but providing genuine, unfiltered emotional support to families in their darkest hours. So the next time you picture that heavy oak door on Main Street, remember that the real comfort doesn't come from the architecture. It comes from the people inside, who now have the time to simply sit with you because their digital front door is out there doing all the heavy lifting.